Good morning. My name is Annie Morris, and I'm the associate for today's service. Reverend Matt Alspaugh will be presenting our message this morning from North Carolina. Our opening words this morning are by Heidi Cotton. Let us be a faith that gathers, reaching for one another through the walls of hate others build, through the cages of ignorance and arrogance, and through the fear that burns city streets. Let us be a faith that sees a vision of a better world, more compassionate, more just, more holy, and with more love. There is a faith that binds up the broken, cauterizes battle wounds with the balm of peace, sings longer and louder than the trumpets of war. Let us be that faith too. Let us be the ones who do not tread lightly in this world, but light it up with our love, who hold up the mirror of worth and dignity, who are the sanctuary others seek. But first, let us be a faith that worships together, here, this morning, in this space, at this moment. Let us be a faith. And so let us worship together. Our announcements were on a slideshow before the service and were also sent out yesterday by email with the order of service for today. And now a special welcome to our visitors. If you're visiting with us for the first time or have returned or reconnected with us after a long absence, we invite you to say your name and tell us where you're from. If you're on Zoom, use the Zoom raise hand feature and we'll ask you to unmute. If you are in the room, just raise your hand.
You're elected whether you want to be or not.
Good morning. My name is Hyacinth Miller, and I'm from a little town in Ontario called Sharon, which is about 70 kilometers north of Toronto. I'm a writer, and this is my 5th visit here, and it's magical. Very healing, very friendly and warm, and I'm just so happy to be here.
Welcome.
It's our hand right there. This is tricky.
Yeah. Oh. Ray and Cindy from Anchorage, Alaska, and we actually have been here 3 years. Our last year was in 2020, January, and of course we quit coming because of the COVID, but we're back, so we hope you're all disease-free. I don't know. Thank you. Here's my lovely wife, Cindy.
So we celebrated our 50th anniversary during COVID in 2020. And now we're celebrating our 4th sort of anniversary here. It's lovely. Thank you.
Welcome. Anybody else?
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Louisa Langton, and I live in Chapala. I've actually lived here for about 8 years, and I originally I was raised in Berkeley, and my adult life was spent in Sonoma County, California, Northern California. And I came here to the UU about 8 years ago for about 6 months, and then sort of fell out of it. So anyway, I'm here today. Thank you.
Welcome. Anybody on Zoom? Let's switch to Zoom now. Is there anyone new with us on Zoom?
Doesn't look like any newcomers.
Okay. And just a brief note, we offer a wide variety of services on various topics presented by our members, outside guests, as well as our minister, Reverend Matt Alspaugh. We hope you'll return to sample this variety of thought and belief.
I can show you the sideways and under on a magic carpet ride. A whole new world, a new fantastic point of view. No one to tell us no, or where to go, or say we're only dreaming. A whole new world, a dazzling place I never knew. But when I'm way up here, it's crystal clear that now I'm in a whole new world with you. Unbelievable sights, indescribable feeling, soaring, tumbling, freewheeling through an endless diamond sky. A whole new world, 100,000 things begin. I'm like a shooting star, I've come so far, I can't go back. I'm in a whole new world, with new horizons to pursue. I'll chase them anywhere, there's time to spare. Let me share this whole new world with you.
Our chalice lighting words today are by Ben Soul. Out of the darkness, light. Out of the light, warmth. Out of the warmth, joy. Out of the joy, togetherness. May this flame hold us for the time we are here with one another. Now let us light our chalice with these words that we sing together.
We kindle this light in celebration for the life that we share.
There are many ways to be of service to LCUUF. Our time, treasure, and talents are all necessary components to a healthy fellowship. Now is the time in our service when we ask you to share the gift of treasure through pledging and donations. Instructions for payments to the fellowship are on a slide during the announcements before the service every week. For the people here at the fellowship, we'll pass a basket. If you're new here today, or if you're struggling to hold things together, let the basket pass you by. Your presence is more than enough and is a gift to us. And while you're considering your gifts to the fellowship, remember that each month LCUUF donates 5,000 pesos or more to an organization in our Lakeside community. We share 1/2 of the offering collected at the fellowship each week with that organization. For the month of February, we are supporting Food Bank Lakeside. Food Bank Lakeside works to relieve the chronic food poverty of our most disadvantaged neighbors, collaborating with donors, volunteers, business, and community organizations to ease the suffering and offer the hope of a brighter future throughout the Lakeside community. Our opening hymn is Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Please rise as you're willing and able and join me in singing. We will sing this simple round 3 times through.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know you all love to sing, But we want to raise the roof when we sing because we want to be happy. And there's one way to do that. And even if you're self-conscious about singing and you think, oh, I can't sing in tune, well, yes, you can. And all you have to do is open your mouths and project your voice. And I tell you what a difference that will make. I'm going to play a short introduction and then we'll sing it 3 times.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is the caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come, one more time. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
Remember that for the next hymn.
Each week, we take time to remind ourselves that we belong to a community which cares for each other. The sharing of joys, sorrows, and milestones is one way that we practice holding one another in community. We speak what is in our hearts, sharing any significant joys or sorrows in our lives because there is power in the sharing. We will start with the folks in the room to give those on Zoom a chance to type joys or sorrows into the chat to be read aloud by the Zoom host. First, let us recall the joys. Whatever you may be celebrating, whatever evokes a feeling of joy or peace for yourself or others, are there any joys that people would like to share here in the room?
I'm Dee Dee Kamhai, and I just want to thank everyone for wishing me all the joys during this time that I'm going through now. Thank you.
My name is Lynn, and I thought about whether I should share this or not because if I flunk, I'm going to be really embarrassed. But February 22nd, we're leaving on the 19th to go to DF, and February 22nd, I have an appointment to take a test to become a Mexican citizen.
Hi everyone, I'm Roxy, and on Tuesday, I had a celebration of 44 years without alcohol or drugs. And a good friend from was also here from Arizona that was able to give me my chip. So I'm very happy to celebrate 44 years clean and sober.
Yes, my name is Ray, and my joy is being here this morning and being welcomed by everyone. And I've got to admit, I'm kind of the guest from hell. If you don't talk to me, I'm going to corner you. And I've done that. We've been to visitors at many Unitarian churches, and this one, people actually walk up to me. So you can all relax.
I have a joy. Michael, thank you for getting us to sing that rousingly. Appreciate it.
If you don't sing, my wrath is very bad.
This week I'm celebrating 38 years living abroad, which has so incredibly enriched my life. 30 years in Rome and 8 years here. So I'm just very happy. Thank you.
going to have to pass the mic. I have a great joy. We walked on the Malecon this morning and saw the most beautiful pelicans. My husband, my son, and myself, and our doggie. We were really happy today.
Are there any joys to be celebrated on Zoom?
We're all silently joyful.
Okay. Now let us voice our sorrows, whatever you or the world may be holding that is in need of our healing and caring thoughts. Are there any sorrows that people in the room would like to share?
I'm Cindy, and our sorrow or concern is that the gentleman, Jim Wanamaker, who was a judge in Anchorage, is now 87, who lured us down here several years ago, fell and has a traumatic brain injury from which he's recovering now at an assisted living facility. I think they called it Chula Vista North. I'm not sure. We're going there after this. So please hold him in your thoughts and prayers.
My name is Jan, and we just found out that one of my younger sisters, number 7 in our family, has 2 malignant lumps in her brain. We haven't got the treatment yet, but please keep her in your thoughts. Thank you.
Let me get me on my camera. Please light a candle for my aunt, a very integral part of my childhood, along with my mother and grandmother. She passed this week. It was my dad's sister.
Tom McClure. Concern for the people of Ukraine who are under constant bombardment, many without utilities, and striving to survive and conquer.
My name is Judd. Like many of us, as we get older, we have family or friends that are dealing with some really difficult times. Please remember my friend Bob. For more than half a year, he's been struggling with brain cancer. He had immunotherapy, I believe, but his body rejected it, and that's not a good sign. So I'll talk with him later today, and I want to share with him that we remembered him here at the UU Fellowship.
So while I know I see other hands, but I need 2 candles today, Annie. I got First candle is from my cousin Scott. He's the middle of 3 of my cousins. We're a very small family, and he just got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He's out in the Seattle area. So that was hard. And then the same day, I opened up Facebook, and a long time family friend who was close to 90 died the day on February 1st. So candle for Scott and a candle for Dick.
Concern for the people in Haiti who are being overrun by drug lords and warlords, and their government is on the verge of collapse. And the only people that are willing to go in there and help a little bit is Jamaica. And hopefully some other countries will internationally get in there and do something about it, because it is really dreadful. It's a horrible situation for them.
Good morning, I'm Heidi, and I've been debating about what to say about this. You've heard me talk about my mother. She's 98 years old. She lives at home with a caretaker, and unfortunately, she's lost so much weight now that her legs won't support her. She had another fourth fall that's very serious, and but she's such a fighter. I think she might live to be 100.
Thought I saw one back here.
Hi, I'm Susie, and I've been a member here for a long time, but I'm glad to be back. I wasn't here much during COVID. I never missed online, though. And I would say my sorrow in the last couple of months alone, I didn't share it, but my sorrow is almost a joy now because I just got back from New Mexico again. I lost my partner of 33 years, and it was really hard, and I was crying a lot and feeling very alone. And I don't know, this last time going through things and letting go of things and being with the family and bringing down ashes and ready to go back to our favorite places here in Mexico to throw his ashes in the wind in our favorite places is what he said. I'm looking forward to doing that with friends and having closure and knowing the importance of enjoying every moment. And we never know when we have a massive heart attack and fall to the floor and are dead before we hit the floor and not ready. It's good for them, but not for us. But so I'm not sure if it's a joy or a sorrow, but I'm coming to grips with it and feeling better.
Are there any sorrows to be shared on Zoom?
No, Annie, there aren't.
Okay, thanks. I'm glad because we're out of candles. And I'm glad for joy. Okay. And this candle from our care team represents the joys and sorrows we hold in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. We'd light this candle for all those unspoken sorrows and joys. Let us share a moment of silence to hold in our hearts both the sorrows and the joys that have been shared this morning. Today's reading is by Reverend Forrest Church, who was a UU minister and author. He writes, "Imagine awakening one morning from a deep and dreamless sleep to find yourself in the nave of a vast cathedral. You open your eyes upon a world unseen, indeed unimaginable before. It is a world of light and dancing shadow, stone and glass, life and death. Look about you. Contemplate the mystery and contemplate with awe. This cathedral is as ancient as humankind, its cornerstone the first altar marked with the tincture of blood and stained with tears. Search for a lifetime, which is all you're surely given, and you shall not know its limits. Visit all its transepts, worship at its myriad shrines, nor span its celestial season. I do this every time. Celestial ceiling with your gaze. The builders worked from time to immemorial, destroying and creating, confounding and perfecting, tearing down and raising up arches in this cathedral, buttresses and chapels, organs and theaters, transepts and idols and icons. Not a moment passes without work being begun that shall not be finished in the lifetime of the architects who planned it, the patrons who paid for it, the builders who constructed, or the expectant worshipers. Throughout human history, one generation after another has labored lovingly, sometimes fearfully, crafting memorials and consecrating shrines. Untold numbers of those collect dust in the long-disturbed chambers. Others, cast centuries or eons ago from their once respected places, lie shattered in shards or ground into powder on the cathedral floor. Not a moment passes without the dreams of long-dead dreamers being outstripped, shattered, or abandoned, giving way to new visions, each immortal in reach, ephemeral in grasp. Welcome to the Cathedral of the World. Above all else, contemplate the windows. In the cathedral of the world, there are windows without number, some long forgotten, covered with many patinas of grime, others revered by millions, the most sacred of shrines. Each in its own way is beautiful. Some are abstract, others representational, some dark and meditative, others bright and dazzling. Each window tells a story about the creation of the world, the meaning of history, the purpose of life, the nature of humankind, the mystery of death. The windows of the cathedral are where the light shines through. Because the cathedral is so vast, our time so short, and our vision so dim, over the course of our pilgrimage, we are only able to contemplate a tiny part of the cathedral, explore a few apses, reflect upon the play of darkness and light through a few of its windows. Yet, by pondering and acting on our ruminations, we discover insights that will invest our days with meaning. A 21st century theology based on the concept of one light and many windows offers its adherents both breadth and focus. Honoring multiple religious approaches, it only excludes the truth claims of absolutists. That is because fundamentalists claim that light shines only through their window. Skeptics draw the opposite conclusion. Seeing the bewildering variety of windows and observing the folly of the worshipers, they conclude there is no light. But the windows are not the light. They are where the light shines through. We never shall see the light directly, only as refracted through the windows of the cathedral. Prompting humility, life's mystery lies hidden. The light is veiled. Yet, being halfway in size between the creation itself and our body's smallest constituent part, that we can encompass with our minds the universe that encompasses us is a cause for great wonder. Awakened by the light, we stand in the cathedral trembling with awe. And now, Reverend Matt.
I have a little focus problem. Let me see if I can fix that. That's better. Hope for you. So I went into a time of meditation. I'm also having a little bit of an echo problem, so let me take a moment to fix that. Okay. So let's enter into a time of meditation as you're willing and able. Oftentimes in meditation, we try to focus our concentration on an object of meditation. Sometimes this might be, for example, a candle flame, or maybe a flower. Sometimes we even do meditations, for example, around odors or tastes. A classic one is meditating on the taste of a raisin or a grape or some other simple food. We oftentimes use these kinds of things as objects of meditation that help us concentrate our awareness of our senses on some particular thing so that we can begin to see the behavior of our minds in meditation. Another one where I started my practice was meditating on passages, on memorized poems or sacred readings of the mystics, things like that. But I would say that those require, of course, that you memorize something. And many times we don't have access to that kind of thing, or to a candle or a raisin or a flower or whatever. But at all times, we have access to one thing that we can use as an object of meditation, and that is our breath. And so today we'll have a simple meditation on our breath, because it's always there. And a very simple practice of meditation is just simply to note the breath noting the breath coming in, the inhalation, and noting the breath going out, the exhalation. And so we might just sit here for a moment, just noting our in-breaths and our out-breaths. In-breaths and out-breaths. And for an extended period of time, that might not be enough. We may have a mind that is kind of busy and worrying about a lot of things or thinking about things in the past. So oftentimes, counting can be a helpful tool for focusing on the breath. So one technique I like to use is the following. I simply count up for a bit and then back down. And so it might be like this. Counting 1 on the in-breath and 2 on the out-breath. And 3 on the in-breath and 4 on the out-breath. And 5 on the in-breath and 4 on the out-breath. And 3 on the in-breath and 2 on the out-breath. And 1 on the in-breath and 2 on the out-breath. 3 on the in-breath and 4 on the out-breath. 5 on the in-breath and 4 on the out-breath. 3 on the in-breath, 2 on the out-breath. And so we just keep this pattern going silently in our minds, counting the odd numbers on the in-breath, even numbers on the out-breath. 1 up to 5, down to 1. We'll just take a few moments now for you to practice this silently. And now let us return to this place and this time to be together again. Oh, let me fix that. That's probably a little better. So we begin. Early in my career at Bell Laboratories, I was sent off on an overseas assignment a couple months in Singapore. One evening, I stepped out of my apartment to find a man lighting incense sticks along my sidewalk. And I asked him what he was up to, and he explained that he was performing an animist ritual. Well, he didn't say it that way, but rather he said that he was honoring the spirits and the things around him. And then a few weeks later, a Chinese woman, the wife of my primary business contact, invited me to church with their family. She said, "It'll be fun." And it turned out to be this huge Pentecostal church with thousands of people and the whole Pentecostal experience. I mean, fiery preaching and people speaking in tongues and people fainting on the floor. And as I left, I asked her about this church. I said to her, "But I thought your family was Buddhist." "Well, yes," she said, "but we also like to go to that church sometimes because it's interesting." My curiosity piqued, thinking back to that man with the incense. And I asked, "And so do you also worship the local spirits?" "Sure, of course," she said. Now, this was almost more than I could bear. As a Southern boy raised Methodist, who grew up implicitly assuming that you could only be one religion at a time, Methodist, Baptist, maybe Presbyterian, let alone Catholic. You might change religion, but you sure couldn't belong to more than one at the same time. And here this woman was blowing my mind, doing 3 religions at one time: animism, Buddhism, and Pentecostalism. What others might she just throw into the mix on a whim? It seemed wrong, even to my newly post-Methodist, post-Christian mind. And yet I realized that deep down, maybe there was something to this. What if all the religions of the world had something to offer, each of them? What if maybe there was something fundamental, some common thread at the depth of most all religions? Could our experience with other religions be helpful for our own spiritual growth? I think back to our early Unitarian roots and recall how Unitarianism was inspired by other religions, Eastern religions. Now, Unitarianism grew out of liberal Christianity. There's no doubt about that. But what about these other religions? Well, when we read the works of our early transcendentalist Unitarian writers, people like Ralph Waldo Emerson or Henry David Thoreau, they speak of ideas that sound remarkably Hindu or Buddhist. Thoreau wrote of God existing in the present moment, a phrasing that sounds remarkably modern. Emerson talks of a kind of interconnectedness when he writes, "Within man," yes, and I know it's a little bit sexist there, "within man is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty, the eternal one." Now, these writers didn't keep very good source notes, but unfortunately, and we do not have access, we do know that they had access to a few poorly translated texts from India. I have no doubt that the ideas that they found in those texts influenced these transcendentalists deeply, and thus changed Unitarianism from a strand of liberal Christianity into something larger, something deeper, something perhaps more profound than the Christianity of the day, with this sense of the divine all around us, shot through us, part of us. Now, the Universalist, on the other hand, that other strand of UU, had their own encounters with the world religions, but their encounters were much more recent. Remember that the Unitarians and the Universalists didn't merge their 2 religions until 1962. And in the middle of that last century, a theological movement within the Universalist Church began to ask the question, what qualities might be universal in religion? What would a truly universal religion based on finding and practicing such universal truths look like? Now, some of you may recognize this idea of finding the core in all religions as the so-called perennial philosophy of Aldous Huxley and Huston Smith, of the middle of this last century. Smith actually was a Unitarian Universalist, by the way. In our movement, the Universalist leader, Reverend Ken Patton, began an exploration of what he called a religion for one world. In 1949, he was called as the minister to a brand new Universalist church in Boston, the Charles Street Meeting House. Here, he began to decorate the meeting house to visually express this vision of the religion for one world. At the front of the sanctuary, he painted a large image of the Andromeda Galaxy, which you see here. And I mean, he himself painted this. I think ministers were more versatile back then. He painted this to symbolize the connection of this religion for one world to science and rationality. Surrounding this image, and you can see this on the between the first and second levels, he had artists create dozens of brass symbols for all the major and many of more obscure religions. Reverend Patton describes his goal with this. The meeting house has one basic and simple idea: to find a religious setting for a religion of one humanity and one world. It is the United Nations idea, especially as it is embodied in UNESCO, applied to a religion, end quote. So this concept of a religion for one world seeks to find those universal truths that underlie many of the specific theologies of the various religions of the world. That perhaps there is some divine reality that we can relate to, some deep truth known by all the mystics in the great religions. Now, this is a delightful idea to many of us, and thinking about it fills us with awe and wonder, with gratitude and love for this world and our place in it. But wonderful as this idea might sound, it is somewhat limited. Patton's meeting house provided amazing resources for the exploration of religious beliefs and ideas. In the meeting house, they played phonograph recordings of music from world religions, and they projected films of their rituals. Now, this was very advanced back in 1949. However, the meeting house offered very little in the exploration of the actual experiences offered by various world religions. See, the experience you would have had visiting the meeting house would have still been very much a North American Protestant experience. I mean, there were pews, there was still a sermon and hymns, and they probably even collected an offering. So it would have been very familiar to most of us. The meeting house experience could have well been a discussion about some world religion rather than the experience of that religion itself. The meeting house experience could have been like the finger pointing at the moon, not the moon itself, to paraphrase a line from that great Zen monk, Ryokan. So if this is the case, how might we learn more deeply from other religions and wisdom traditions? How might we partake, exploring, in effect, the cathedral of the world? How might we actually experience it? In seminary, I decided to take a class on Sufism. I had encountered Sufism through, New Agey practices like Dances for Universal Peace, which you see here, and read modern interpretations of Sufi writers like Jalaluddin Rumi. So I looked forward to more of the same in this class. But the instructor, Sheikh Yassir Chadli from Morocco, had a different idea. He called those people who pick and choose ideas from the Sufi tradition Sufi Goofis. He insisted that if we wanted to truly understand Sufism, we had to embrace the whole thing, including Sufism's roots, Islam. In the first class, he told us that we would not be Sufi Goofies. Each evening the class met, we would perform the Islamic evening prayer, or Maghrib, one of the 5 contact prayers, or Salat, that observing Muslims perform each day. So each class period, we'd break off in the middle of the class, head down to the school's kitchen or bathrooms to perform our ablutions, ritually washing our faces, arms, and feet in the sinks. Then we'd line up and stand shoulder to shoulder on sheets and blankets laid out on the floor of the classroom. Someone would recite the call to prayer, beginning with the words, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. We'd proceed through the 3 cycles of the prayer, with their bowing and prostrations, silently reciting the words as best we could. And let me tell you, I do not understand Arabic. Now, toward the end of the semester, we attended a liberal masjid or mosque in Oakland, where we lined up with others from that congregation, shoulder to shoulder, and performed the prayer, and then listened to an imam speak on some aspect of the Quran, and experienced the feeling of being part of this community. And now, while my seminarian mind was full of ideas and concepts, and it found this whole activity a bit of a waste of time, my heart slowly began to feel its way into the underlying sentiment which runs through Sufism, this sense of ultimate and joyful surrender to Allah, an intoxicating relationship to all that is. The experience helped me move from being merely a tourist, a mere observer, to being a visitor, sampling, taking at least a taste of what it means to be Sufi. I've become to see that while belief is central in religion, practice is equally important. Recently, I encountered the work of David Destino in The Psychology of Religion and his book, How God Works, and his podcast by the same name. Now, Destino's hypothesis is that most of the religious practices, things like those salat prayers, the circle dancing, lighting incense, and even more familiar things like singing hymns, sermon, silent meditation, all these practices evolved over time to be beneficial to the people that practice them. These practices help people connect with their religious communities, to care for each other, to survive grief and loss, to become more generous towards one another, and in general, become better people. Further, those religions that have beneficial practices tend to survive, while those religions that have few practices or practices that offer no benefits to their participants will wither and die out. A cautionary example that comes to my mind is the Shaker movement that was popular in the USA in the middle of the 19th century. Now, the Shakers practiced a strict form of celibacy and opposed childbearing, so they had difficulty maintaining membership over time and have all but died out. So I've come to integrate the thinking with the doing, the belief and the practice. I've come to integrate both the perennial philosophy of Huxley and Smith with the psychology of Destino. Perhaps the great religions of the world endure because their beliefs ultimately point to something universal and foundation that can be shared by all people, that is somehow internal to us. And maybe more so, these great religions endure because each of them have found practices that help their people survive, thrive, and flourish in the world. Perhaps these religions have evolved with their beliefs and their practices. In the Cathedral of the World, Reverend Forrest Church invites us to contemplate the windows, some abstract, others representational, some dark and meditative, others bright and dazzling. He invites us to reflect that the windows of the cathedral are where the light shines through. In his view, drawing on those old ideas of the perennial philosophy, there is one common light shared by all humans. The light represents our common yearnings, our common questions about life and death and community and purpose. And since we can't see this light directly, we interpret the light through the windows of the various religions, and I would say from scientific and rational approaches too. But we UUs, perhaps more than most, realize that no particular window accurately represents the light. We UUs are humbled by the awareness that the true nature of the light is obscured by the stained glass colors, however beautiful they might be. In the story of the Cathedral of the World, church does not mention other people in the cathedral, other people practicing their religions in their respective halls and chapels. I imagine the cathedral full of people in those spaces, sitting, dancing, standing, swaying, spinning, praying, singing, meditating, doing all those things of practicing their religions in all the myriad ways that people have to practice religion. I imagine life, vitality, movement, action. I imagine people doing all the activities not because their religion commands them to, but because they know that deep down inside that practicing helps them find their way. Practicing helps them become the people they want to be. Return with me to church's image of the Cathedral of the World. We Unitarian Universalists are more than just wanderers, visitors through the halls and galleries and transepts. We too have a location somewhere in this great space, some side chapel perhaps, where what we have created as Unitarian Universalists is offered to the world. I trust that our UU hall, though it may not be as expansive as others, is vibrant and full of activity. It is not one of those chambers now crumbling, collecting dust, one of those whose builders said years ago, "We are complete now, this is done, there will be no more changes." I like to imagine that even as the many people seeking what we offer as Unitarian Universalists explore our space, it is still filled with construction, and the bustle of activity continues, with workers on scaffolds setting stones in place. I recall my Chinese acquaintance in Singapore, who was at the same time Buddhist, animist, and Pentecostal. I wonder now if she, unawares, guided me towards my understanding of Unitarian Universalism. For we, more than most religions, are willing to cherish what all the world religions have to offer. We, more than most, are willing to explore the beliefs and practices of those religions as respectful visitors. We, more than most, understand that all religions are human attempts, however imperfect, to make sense of the light and to practice the good life. Blessed be.
Our closing hymn is "It Sounds Along the Ages." Please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing.
And sing nice and loud and make Michael happy. It sounds along the ages, soul answering to soul. It
And we have no audio on Zoom.
of every Bible scroll. The fathers heard and sang it, from martyr lips it broke, and prophet tongues rang it, till sleeping nations woke. From Sinai's cliffs it echoed, catch the music of its eternal chime.
In our study and our learning, in our musing and our intuition,
Sound, Matt.
as well as in our practice, our movement, our action, and our service, may we come closer to that light,
Are you, Matt,
approaching
you might be
the
on
truth
mute.
that underlies everything. And just maybe, after exploring the cathedral, let us make our way out of its doors and
Matt,
into the world,
Reverend Matt,
where we might
you are
go
muted.
out and live in the light.
Somebody text
Blessed
him.
be. Maybe.
No, he is not unmuted. I can hear him fine.
Blessed be.
Hear him.
We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of the warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world. Our worship is over. Our service begins. Let's hear a song. I'm so sorry.
From the day we arrived on the planet and blinking step into the sun, there's more to be seen that can ever be seen, more to do that can ever be done. Some say eat or be eaten, some say live and let live. But all are agreed as they join the stampede, you should never take more than you give in the circle of life. It's the wheel of fortune, it's the leap of faith, it's the band of hope till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle of life. Some of us fall by the wayside, and some of us soar to the stars, and some of us sail through our troubles, and some of us have to live with the stars. There's far too much to take in there, more to find than can ever be found. But the sun rolling high through the sapphire sky keeps great and small the endless sound in the circle of life. It's the wheel of fortune, it's the leap of faith, it's the band of hope till we find our place on the path unwinding, yeah, in the circle It's the wheel of fortune. It's the leap of faith. It's the bend of hope till we find our place on the path unwinding, yeah, in the circle of life. On the path unwinding, yeah, in the circle of life.
For the newcomers and those who haven't been here much, I want to say we don't always know what's going to happen here, but don't we have a good time? Our worship is over, our service begins. Go in peace and with a purpose.